Whoa. Corbin Burnes is a Baltimore Oriole. What a 24 hours in Baltimore. They have a new owner who's probably going to spend, and they have a new ace at the top of their rotation. And it didn't seem like this was coming from Milwaukee. Scotty Braun, A.J. Pierzynski, and Ken Rosenthal. So, Ken, quick reactions to Corbin Burnes getting dealt from Milwaukee, including the fact that I think many people thought he was going to be held on to, given that they signed Rhys Hoskins.
That's a great point, Scott. And the Brewers seemingly have gone back and forth all winter internally on whether they wanted to do this. And the owner, Mark Attanasio, is sensitive to their competitive position. They just lost Craig Counsell as manager, right? And they're replacing him with Pat Murphy. And the question then is, okay, that's great. You want to compete in the NL Central, which is a weaker division, but you face the possibility of losing Corbin Burnes for nothing after losing Brandon Woodruff, non-tendering him because he's injured, and not getting anything for him as a free agent. And then Willie Adames is another question. So they chose to do this even after signing Hoskins. Joey Ortiz is a good prospect. He can play the infield for them. Maybe gives them the ability to trade Adames now. Maybe they go in that direction. DL Hall should be able to move into their rotation, but this is not the same team without Corbin Burnes and Brandon Woodruff, and that is what the 2024 Brewers are looking at. But obviously, guys, the bigger thing here is the Orioles. And what an amazing 24 hours it has been. First, the news that this club is being sold. And now, of course, the addition of the ace they have been seeking all winter long. Their farm system is so deep that they could give up Hall, Ortiz, and a competitive balance pick, 34th overall next year, because they've got other players coming. Jackson Holliday is one of them at shortstop. So I'm not even sure this hurts the Orioles that much. Granted, Burnes is only 1 year of control, but it's a great move for them. It reinforces everything they accomplished last year, enables them to take a step forward.
Wow. Wow. I mean, wow. Listen, here he is right here. My guy. I've had this here since day one of this show. Corbin Burnes in a Brewers. I don't know. I got to get like an orange marker and put an Orioles logo on him now. I'm shocked the Orioles did this. And I'm even more shocked, like you said, Ken, the Brewers did this.
Adames. He's a guy who is a really gifted infielder. The Orioles were quite high on him, and Hall as well, for that matter. At the same time, if you're the Brewers now, you have to look at possibly trading Adames. There are teams that want shortstops still. The Dodgers are one, the Marlins are another one. Then you have Devin Williams. Devin Williams recently signed a 1 year deal with a club option for next year. That's 2 years of control if you want to trade him. How far do they go with this? I'm not sure. Hoskins is a 1 year guy. He's got an opt out at the end of the year. Could, of course, stay for one more year. They're going to try to compete. I am certain of that. It's just that they're going to have a much different look. And this might not be the end for them as far as trades.
All right, so where are we at with the Orioles, Ken? This is what we were kind of begging for as a fan base in general of the sport. It's like tapping them, poking them, do something. All they had done this entire offseason was sign Craig Kimbrell, fine, suitable replacement for Felix Bautista, who should miss most of, if not all of the season here coming up. And he was a lockdown closer for them, maybe the best in the sport. Are we satisfied now? Like, did the Orioles do what they were supposed to do? They can kind of go, all right, let's head into spring training. We don't need to trade anyone. They're not going to necessarily make much of a financial investment yet in their player payroll, even though it does sound like the new ownership group could take over in a matter of weeks. Like, Orioles are the best team in baseball now?
Oh, I don't know that I would say that. There are other teams, the Dodgers notably, that you would have to put in that conversation as well. The Atlanta Braves are not going anywhere. But certainly with the Orioles now, you look at the rotation, it's an entirely different look. Bradish and Rodriguez, Kyle Bradish, Grayson Rodriguez, two of the best starters in the second half of last season. Now you put Burnes on top of those two. You have the idea, the possibility of Jackson Holliday making this team coming out of spring training. It's not something they're ruling out. You have all these other young players coming, as well as the core that's there. Santander and Hayes and Rushman and Henderson, all these guys. It's a really exciting time for them. And yes, this offseason until 2 days ago had been a disappointment in a lot of ways, but fans are really happy about the likelihood that the new owner will spend more than this owner. I would think that's fair to say. And you're taking on 15 plus million with Corbin Burnes for this year, but it's the kind of move a team in their position should be making. It's 1 year. And beyond that, we'll see what happens. Obviously, Burnes is represented by Scott Boras. He's not going to sign an extension tomorrow. He's not going to sign an extension most likely at all. But they'll take their chances with him this year. Maybe with new ownership, they'll be in position to at least try to sign him at the end of the season. And we'll just see where it goes.
Wow, I'm shocked. All right, so I have to ask this, Ken, because you're deeper in all this stuff than I am. The Dylan Cease was the name we kept hearing for the Orioles. Does this mean the Dylan Cease market is kind of dead right now for the White Sox? And they also didn't give up Basayo, Mayo, Kerstead, or Kowser from the Orioles, so they still have a plethora of prospects. So what does this mean for the Orioles, and does this kill everything for Dylan Cease?
I don't know that it kills everything for Dylan Cease. I would never say that, AJ, because a team could come at the White Sox tomorrow and decide, hey, we're going to do this, and that's that. But the White Sox position has been they're not going to trade Dylan Cease until they get the offer they want. It's the same position the Brewers were in. My concern always, when you take a pitcher into the season, you risk that he might get hurt. He might not be that effective in the first half. Now, these guys are among the best pitchers in the game. That's not as likely, but the injury prospect is real. So the White Sox, if they carry Dylan Cease into the season, they incur that risk. And maybe it all works out for them and they get a boffo deal at the deadline, and it's possible. Pitchers at the deadline command perhaps even more than they do at this time of year. But at the same time, that is a bit of a risk. I don't expect this, though, to change their position. They are adamant about the package they want back. They are absolutely entitled to take that stance. This is 2 years of control with Dylan Cease, not one, as it is with Burnes. But at the same time, it's going to be really interesting to see how they handle this. And if this changes things, maybe for them and other teams as we enter the final weeks before spring training.
Ken, great work on this. I know you already have a story out on The Athletic and more to come. So we appreciate the time, and we'll see you on FT.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Ken Rosenthal, FT Senior Insider, with us on the Corbin Burnes deal. All right, AJ, let's unravel some other pieces of this, including already Orioles fans being like, we might be able to throw $250 million at this dude and say, take it or leave it now that there's new ownership. Dude, I don't think we should overlook the fact that new ownership takes over and 24-ish hours later, suddenly this trade happens. And we kept thinking that it was going to be Dylan Cease, right? For Baltimore, like you mentioned. Dylan Cease for this coming season costs half the price of Corbin Burnes about. I think he's in the 8 range, right? And Corbin Burnes is in about the $15 million range. Baltimore was operating like a super tiny market team with John Angelos, okay? $15 million was probably something that they didn't have approval for, or at least were told to wait until this sale is finalized. I'm pretty confident that this trade also happens because there's new ownership. So have you ever seen an ownership group semi-take over and make a move like this already from the jump? Oh, hey, 100-win team, here's your freaking ace. And it's a dude that you didn't even necessarily expect. Like, I got to say, I think Corbin Burnes is better than Dylan Cease. He's certainly had a more consistent career. They're both capable of being number ones, but Corbin Burnes might be a top 3 or 5 starter in Major League Baseball.
Don't forget, he also has some big trophy. I don't know what are they. It's a trophy they give the pitcher.
I don't know. It's on FT every few weeks, and it's like right behind him. He got Cy
Young. He has a Cy Young. I forgot about that. Listen, this is incredible. Again, the ownership came in, and everyone in Baltimore was excited. We talked to Ken Rosenthal. We've talked to everybody in Baltimore the last couple of days, and they have said, man, this is a huge deal for the Orioles. New ownership, new enthusiasm, new energy and around Camden Yards. And boom, what do? Now, my question is, and Ken had to go, but was this a Mike Elias trade or was this a new ownership? Let's get this done trade. See, that's the question. Mike Elias is probably sitting on this. And to me, they didn't give up a lot. I mean, listen, D.L. Hall, nice pitcher. Joey Ortiz, good player. But they didn't give up any of the guys that everyone's been talking about, Hiersted and Kowser and Jackson Holiday and all these guys that people keep saying, man, these guys are going to be studs. So this is a win-win for Baltimore. And if they lose Corbin Burnes after 1 year, but they go to the playoffs and they make a deep run, possibly win a World Series, it was totally worth it. And this is what I want to see out of teams. This is what's great about the new ownership coming in saying, all right, let's pull the trigger. Prospects are only prospects for so long. So listen, the Brewers got 2 players back and a competitive balance pick. I mean, great, but this is a bigger deal for the Orioles than it is for the Brewers, other than signaling to the Brewers fans that, Now Devin Williams could be on the block. I mean, there's a lot of guys. Freddie Peralta, is he on the block now? Willie Adames, right? He's another one that they could possibly trade. What do they do with Wilson Contreras? I mean, Christian Yelich has got to be sitting there going, man, I know I signed a nice deal, but could I get traded? I mean, there's a lot of steps that could come now out of the Brewers making this one move.
I'll add another name, Rhys Hoskins. If he has a big first half and the Brewers aren't in contention, you might get traded too if you're Rhys. I mean, I think Rhys eased concerns in Milwaukee that they were going to not try this coming season. Think about this. They won the division last year. And this coming season, they now traded away their number one starter. Now, unfortunately, this is what happens with a team like this. They're looking at themselves and saying, we can't just let a player like this go and get nothing back or get obviously a compensation pick back. Which, by the way, I would like to add, AJ, there is a 34th overall pick, which is essentially a first-round pick that's included here. Some people are like, I thought you can't trade draft picks. It's a comp pick, so you are allowed to trade competitive balance picks, which Baltimore does right here. This actually also proves my bigger point that we should allow all draft picks to be traded in MLB because it's easier to pull off deals that way because teams fall in love with prospects, but trading draft picks is a little easier and it sweetens the pot. So anyway, let's look at Baltimore again. Suddenly, AJ, not only is this team capable of obviously getting back to the postseason and winning the division, but how do we like this for the playoffs? Lining up Burnes, Bradish, and Grayson Rodriguez as your 1 through 3. We'll see how Means looks and Kramer, et cetera, at the back end of that starting rotation. But those three can compete with any top 3.
Yeah, I mean, listen, yeah, you throw Means in there for a 4 who's thrown a no-hitter, been an all-star, he's pretty good. So, I mean, that's pretty good 1 through 4. Grayson, if he takes the next step, Bradish was awesome for him next year. They got Kramer. They got a bunch of guys down there for the 5th to compete for the 5th job. So, listen, anytime you can pencil in a guy like Corbin Burnes, and you can say what you want about, oh, he hasn't been as good since the Cy Young, but you know when he takes the ball most of the time, he's going to give you 6 innings, probably strike out 10, give up 3 runs, whatever, 2 runs, 1 run, if you're having a great night, whatever it is. He's going to give you 6 innings, punch out 10. That saves the bullpen. Back it up with Bradish. Back it up with Grayson. Back it up then with John Means. I mean, 1 through 4, that is solid. If I'm Brandon Hyde right now, if I'm Freddie Gonzalez, the bench coach, I am like, man, let's go, boys. I can't wait to get to Sarasota, get into spring training, and see how all these new toys look.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. And let's look at what Kylie McDaniel said about this trade to put it in context. So 1 year of Corbin Burnes getting paid a little over $15.5 million for 6 years of Joey Ortiz, 6 years of DL Hall, and a late first-round pick, okay? To put in some context for the Milwaukee side, because they're going to have to do a little reload here. And yeah, I mean, I would imagine Joey Ortiz can probably take Adames' spot if they end up making a trade there. We'll also show you J.J. Cooper on the other side. And this is why it made too much sense. They could not get to spring training without a top-end starter to join the other players in their starting rotation, right? The other pitchers in there. So J.J. Cooper from Baseball America said the O's have the top farm system in baseball. No matter who all is in this trade, the gap is so big that they likely will still have the best farm system in baseball. So that says a lot about what we saw from Baltimore over the past season too, because we saw a lot of debuts last year, AJ, but a lot of those guys are still eligible as prospects and kind of entering their rookie season. So that's why it made too much sense. It's like you don't even have enough places for all of these guys. Joey Ortiz, a great defensive shortstop. Guess what? You're not playing shortstop on the Orioles. That's Jackson Holiday whenever he comes up this coming season. So
that's what he kept saying, though. They have multiples in every position. So why not make a trade? Figure out the one that you might not like as much as the other team likes them and say, adios, buddy. Joey Ortiz, guess what? You're not Jackson Holiday. Sorry, you're going to be a good player, hopefully, but you're not going to be Jackson Holiday. DL Hall, you're a nice pitcher, but we can find another one. And it's amazing what they gave up. Listen, these guys hopefully are great, but I just don't. I feel like the Brewers could have got more, but again, I don't know what the offers were. I don't know what Matt Arnold was listening to in the Brewers end. I don't know what he was thinking about. I know it's only a 1 year for Corbin Burnes, and he's probably going to be a free agent because he has Boris, but man, I feel like, man, you should have gotten more. But listen, again, I'm not in those deals, but gosh, man, this is, if I'm an Orioles fan, I am jumping up and down for joy. I am throwing the confetti. I am doing whatever it takes, popping champagne, because this is a new era in Baltimore Orioles baseball.
Yeah, we're already seeing it. I mean, this is what we've been talking about already all week on FT. I mean, they've been operating like a poor franchise, and they've obviously thrived. They did their tanking. They built back really well. Mike Elias was by far the best thing that John Angelos ever did during his ownership tenure. I guess
He did a
maybe
couple.
that's
Listen,
number two.
as much as we've bagged on John Angelos, he signed a new lease. He got them to stay there in Camden Yards. He's done some stuff. He got the city and the state to agree to put a bunch of money into Camden Yards to renovate it, and also to, I think they're going to revitalize it and do kind of a ballpark villagey thing down there. So listen, I mean, he also, you know, did some bad things, but listen, we got to give him a little credit here because he did bring in Mike Elias. He got him their lease signed. He got money for the new ballpark, for the ballpark to be kind of renovated. And now he sold it to great guys who seem like they're ready to go. And they got Cal Ripken back involved with the Orioles. So, I mean, go O's.
Yeah, it's a renaissance period right now in Baltimore. Here's Sarah Langs with some more info on what the Orioles rotation is going to look like. Bradish had a 2.83 last season. Corbin Burnes had a sub 3 in 2022, 2.5-ish in 2021. 2020 was a low twos. Last time the Orioles had two qualifying starters finish with sub 3 ERAs in the same season. It was Wayne Garland and Jim Palmer in 1976. I mean, this is quite the 1-2 punch. And I'll make this case too, AJ. Grayson Rodriguez, stuff wise, can be a 1. I mean, he had the hiccup last year where he came up and not everybody's going to be perfect right off the jump. He goes down to the minor leagues. There were tweaks. One of the tweaks that stood out was he had a cutter that was getting bashed by righties, and he was just like, okay, I'm not going to use that against righties. So some of it was just figuring out your pitch mix, and he did. And then he comes back up, and he was much better. So we've barely seen what he can be in Major League Baseball, but he's capable of being a 1. Like, this is a guy that we've been watching in the minor leagues for the last few years saying, oh, this is Cy Young stuff coming from this guy. So that's why
When he went down, whatever they did when he went down, and I did a game of his with Fox, and we got to talk to him, and he was like, "Man, I made some adjustments mechanically. I kind of scrapped the cutter, like you said, more four seamers, curveball, changeup, and the second half of this year, this guy was really good. So, again, I don't want to undersell Grayson Rodriguez, but Bradish was awesome. Again, they got Kramer, they got Means, now they have Corbin Burnes. This is a solid rotation, and I'm interested to see what the odds jump to now as soon as this, if you were going to put 100 on the Orioles, I hope you did it before they made this trade because I guarantee the odds change as soon as this deal came across.
Yeah, they're going to spike. And really, if you were kind of playing that angle, you should have assumed to some extent that this team was going to pick up a top end starter. I just think that the blitz, the surprise is that it's Burnes and that it's not Dylan Cease. Okay, so let's backtrack to the Brewers again for a sec. The NL Central, the rest of the NL Central has to be freaking out in joy, right? Because with the Rhys Hoskins addition, some of the young talent like Sal Frelick and Jackson Churio up this year for Milwaukee, they look like they can be a team that can win the division again. Certainly capable of doing it still. It's not like a gangbusters division by any means, but Cincinnati fans rejoice, Cubs fans rejoice, Cardinals fans cheer. I mean, Pirates fans, 2025. But seriously, I mean, this does change the complexion of the division. And yeah, if they end up trading Adames, even more so. But I mean, when we stack the division now, for me, I've got Cincinnati ahead of Milwaukee just from this deal alone. That puts me over the top. I was thinking about it anyway, but this to me makes it easier that the Reds are going to be able to leap ahead of them. Cubs still have room if they're going to add a piece or two. But for me right now, without, say, a Bellinger and maybe another starter, I don't love them winning a division. But I don't know where you have the NL Central stacked. But we try and stack things up as moves happen. And for me, I think Milwaukee is not waving the white flag by any means. But, dude, I mean, it's maybe better during the season. When you do something like this and you look at the team, okay? And remember when they traded Josh Hader and the team was like, what the fuck? And I think if you hit a point this year where the Brewers were like, okay, we're not going to get anything for Corbin Burnes. We're going to let him go. Because if they get to July and they're in first place in the division, they can't trade him. They can't do that again to their team. So you're 2 weeks away from spring training, and they made the decision that if the deal was sweet enough, they were going to do it.
Agreed. They made the deal that they think is the best for their organization going forward. This is a tough situation if you're Matt Arnold and you're the GM or the director of baseball ops for the Brewers, because you have a guy that is highly coveted, obviously, in the trade market, but you also were like, man, we got a chance because the NL Central, the Cubs haven't done a lot. We mentioned The Reds have done a bunch, but are they good enough to pass the Brewers and the Cubs? And the Cardinals made some moves. So, I mean, the rest of the division got better just by Corbin Burnes leaving, because that's what, I don't know, maybe 10 starts he's in his division that they're all going to not have to see Corbin Burnes. So they're all the, especially the lefty hitters, are like, oh, thank God, no more cutters coming in on my hands. But man, it's interesting because now, again, we just talked about it earlier. Like, what does this open it up? Is Adames gone? Devin Williams is a guy a lot of people would love to have in the back end of their bullpen. I mean, again, Yelich. I mean, there's some guys, Rhys Hoskins, if he gets off to a good start. And Bob Nightingale here, with his tweet, agreed. Like, this is what we're saying. The Orioles have reestablished themselves in the East, while the NL Central is now wide open, but the Brewers trading away theirs. Think about the Brewers. They lost Woodruff, Hauser, Burnes this offseason. That's 3 of their 5 starters that are gone. 2 of them are elite starters, right? Hauser's a good starter, above average. He went over to the Mets, but gosh, man, it's interesting to see what the Brewers do from here and how because now this almost guarantees Jackson Churrio's got to be on the team out of spring training, right? Because you're almost going into a rebuild. They won't call it that, but there's got to be some semblance. If you're a Brewers fan going, gosh, we are having a rebuild here, start over. And where are they going to find enough quality starting pitching? I don't know their organization inside and out, but right now I look at it, you got Freddie Peralta, and I'm like, you got Wade Miley, and I'm like, man, who else do they have?
Yeah, I'll give you the 3 on the depth chart right now on their just basic MLB.com depth chart. It's Joe Ross, Colin Ray, and Robert Gasser, 3, 4, 5. And there's other dudes that'll be in the mix, and I'm not sure exactly still the role of some guys that are coming back from injuries too. So either way, that's not anywhere close to a rotation that's going to do damage, right? I mean,
not compared to what it was. Think about it. What it was, 2 years ago?
What about at the beginning of this past season of 2023? That's what made everyone excited. You're like, hey, if this team gets to the playoffs and they have a little bit more offense, Burnes, Woodruff, and Peralta can carry you. Problem is, by the time they got to this postseason, they got blitzed in 2 games. They didn't have Woodruff, and they lost anyway with Burnes and Peralta, and that was it for them, right?
Yeah, but they didn't score any runs either, don't forget.
Yeah, and I think their offense is going to get better, but the way this team is looked at now is going to change. This is not a team built on pitching and defense at the moment. Their bullpen was awesome last year, and it should be good again. But the starting rotation is going to take significant steps back for now.
They also, let's not forget, they also lost someone very important to the organization in the division.
Stearns.
No.
Well, they lost David Stearns.
Craig Counsell.
They lost Craig Counsell.
In the division.
Yeah.
To a team of less than 2 hours south of them in Wrigleyville. So, oh man, I mean, you're Pat Murphy. You're thinking, all right, I got a chance. I got a chance to step in. I still got Burnes. I still got Freddie. We brought back Wade Miley. All right, we brought in Rhys Hoskins. All right, here we go. And then he's like, wait. He's probably got the call from Matt Arnold. He's like, wait, what? Wait, you can't trade him. But you know what? Now, I mean, gosh, what am I gonna do here with this?
You're gonna have to change that up. I'll add a few other names too for the rotation. Obviously, Dale Hall should be in that rotation. Maybe not from the jump, but at some point. And
but is he a reliever or is he a starter? Because I think
there's been question marks.
I mean, he's had more success as a reliever, hasn't he?
Yeah, but I think if you're trading for him, you're giving him a shot here. You might as well as a starter. Seeing if he's got the arsenal to do it. And then the name that was escaping me was Aaron Ashby, because he actually has really good stuff.
But he's a 5 and dive guy. He's been always hurt. He's always got an injury, right? I mean, did he miss all of last year or most of last year, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they love him. They signed him to a deal, but he's never been able to stay healthy since he signed the deal. I mean, listen, he's got great stuff. I did a game where he started and they were raving about him, but he threw 100 pitches in 4 innings, and it was like, okay, I see why he didn't last very long. But I mean, there's some holes. I mean, listen, there's some holes in this rotation now. There's some holes now, and again, what do they do next? Because I mean, if you're Willie Adames, you got to have a bag packed right now.
Yeah, Jacob Mrzarowski is the big pitching prospect for them too. All right, on the positive end, the glass half full is this is one of the wildest times in Baltimore baseball history. Casey Stern had to change the narrative of your team offseason in mere minutes. Yeah, Orioles. I mean, that's the thing.
Both teams, though. I feel like this is both teams. You could answer Orioles or Brewers / Brewers.
Yeah, but here's my thing, okay? This is my final thought. Because on this show, in the off season, we do spend a lot of time on ownership. We do that for a reason. Owners dictate baseball more than in other sports. There's not an official salary cap, and there's definitely not an official salary floor. So this is what changes a team. So when we cover the Orioles ownership change, as much as we did, we do that for a reason, because things change. I don't think we expected it to change in 24 hours, but then we bring on John Orand, who broke the story about the Orioles' new ownership group, and he said it could be weeks, not months. Okay, now we're seeing hours, not days, until the Orioles change. And I guarantee you the Orioles were on Dylan Cease because Corbin Burnes was too expensive, and now they're able to shift to a $15+ million a year pitcher to acquire on top of the 13 already. That's almost $30 million on Kimbrel and Burnes that they've added so far this offseason. This is only the beginning for Orioles fans. We talked about on this show $70 million payroll for them last season, how insane that is for a team that tanked for years and then they're competing. It wasn't going to take much for them to be a World Series contender. In my mind, they are, and this is just the beginning for Orioles fans. I think Adley Rutschman and Gunnar Henderson are probably pretty pumped up too, because again, I think you're going to have ownership that's going to push a paper over to them and say, hey, do you want to be here for a long time or even for the entire time in your career? They're going to be talking to free agents next offseason. They're going to be more involved in the trade deadline. There's not going to be things holding them back when the payroll starts this low. I mean, AJ, if they double their payroll, they're in the 140 range. That's still only about average in Major League Baseball, and that is a lot of talent that they can add. So sky's the limit for this organization at this moment. This is going to be some of the best times in Baltimore baseball history. Final thought?
Agreed. This is a time, listen, to get the Blue Jays, the Red Sox, the Yankees. It's a wake-up call. Guess what? The Orioles are coming for y'all. Not only did they win 100+ games last year, they just went out and got better. So this is a huge message to the rest of the division saying, hey, boys, we ain't going away anytime soon. The new ownership is here. Rubenstein Group is here to stay. We got money. We got passion. We got the Orioles fans behind us. And we got some crab cakes coming to the boys in Oriole land because they're going to win a hell of a lot of games coming up for a lot of years.
We're going to have to do some shows from Baltimore. It's one of my favorite places. There's Corbin Burnes. He's on the show all the time.
It looks different. Is he going to
different.
grow the mullet back out like he did?
That's photoshopped. So we have recent interviews every few weeks with Corbin Burnes. If you want to see kind of the latest on what his thoughts were this offseason, great dude. I like that from the Orioles. Big dog.
Mike Elias, big dog.
Exactly. That's a freaking deal right now, Mike Elias.
I can't believe Tiger's wearing a Orioles hat like that, though, man.
Dude, he's
on the bandwagon.
Keeping up with the trends. Everyone's on the Orioles bandwagon right now. So that's it for us for now. For Pierzynski, I'm Braun, and thanks to Ken Rosenthal at the top of this video for joining us. So if you want to get Ken's 5-minute thoughts, just scroll back. And then we're all over this story on FT Live. I'm sure we'll be getting Corbin Burnes on as quickly as we can, as well as he's a regular on this show. So thanks for tuning in. Any questions, whatever it is, you can hit us up on all of our social platforms. Check out our pod if you want to listen. We'll post this on there as well. And congrats to Orioles fans. You just landed a freaking ace on a contract year who might go off this year and win you a World Series. We'll see you on FT.